Hey there, I'm Priscilla. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm glad that you're here. The Chat with Priscilla, that's where you've come. It's a place where we just have chats, conversations about things that I hope will be impactful to you, informative, challenging sometimes, or just plain old flat out fun. So today I want you to have a lot of fun. Pull up a chair, grab your favorite hot beverage, cozy up, and let's talk today on The Chat with Priscilla. Stay tuned. Welcome. This is The Chat with Priscilla. I happen to be Priscilla, and I'm so glad that you're here. I'm welcoming you into our living room. Just pull up a chair, relax, and enjoy. We're actually continuing a conversation we've already been having. We've already been talking in part one of our conversation with Fawn Weaver, who is the author of some incredible books on marriage, most notably the Happy Wives Club, which is really just spreading like wildfire all over the place. There are nearly 1 million women that have literally joined the Happy Wives Club. You can too, happywivesclub.com. But this book really is setting people on fire to realize that they can be happy in their marriages, that the myth is not true that once you get married, all the happiness goes out of the window. You can be content, fulfilled, satisfied, and happy. And that is the message she's going to continue to share with us right now in part two of our conversation. Would you please all help me to welcome Fawn Weaver back to the program?
Thank you.
So glad that you're here. Okay. We kind of left on a little note in part one.
Yes.
We need to talk about this issue of sexual intimacy because it is important to any relationship.
Yes, it is.
We have mentors, Jerry and I, in our life that say to us every time we get together with them, because they're real serious about us having a good marriage. They're like, okay, look, I don't care how good ministry's going. I don't care how good the kids are. They're going to get in our business and ask about us. And the two barometers that they always ask us as to whether or not, to determine whether or not our marriage is doing well, they say, are you guys talking? If we're passing like ships in the night and we're about the business of family, who's going to run this errand, who's going to go there, lunch, kids, all that, they're like, that's not what we're talking about. Are you having conversations with each other? If we're not, that's a red flag for them. And then they ask about our sex life. They want to know, are you consistently intimate with each other? Because if you are not, over time, that is going to erode away at your relationship. So they tell us about the importance of communication and sexual intimacy. So as you're traveling around talking about these happy wives.
Yes. Talking to happy wives.
What did you find out about the importance of physical intimacy in a marriage?
Well, I'm going to take both of those that your mentors ask you about. And they ended up being two of the most surprising things to me. Two of the most surprising findings. The first was that every country that I went to, when I would sit down with a couple that was happily married for 25 years or more, one of the things that I noticed they all had was a daily ritual.
Okay.
Every single one of them.
I hope this has to do with the communication part.
It does.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Girl, I'm already exhausted. Okay.
It does. It is the communication. So every single one of them, and I'll give you an example. So an Israeli couple, for almost 40 years, every night before dinner, the hour before dinner, so they would have dinner at 6 p.m. At 5 p.m., they would have port and appetizers. One of them would make appetizers, one would pour the port. And this is something that they did for decades. Their kids knew growing up, Mom and Dad, we will see them for dinner at 6 p.m. That first portion, we're not invited to. And there was a couple in South Africa, amen.
I'm liking that idea.
Yeah. In South Africa, there was a couple, and they called it their daily board meeting. Every morning, while it was still dark outside, the wife would wake up, she'd open up all of the windows around their bedroom, husband would go downstairs, get 2 cups of coffee, come back up, and they would sit against their headboard, and they would just talk about everything they have on their plate that day. If one of them will not be home because there's a meeting, they're having that communication. So there is never a day that passes that they were not doing something together. So I want to say maybe it was country number 7. I think I had just left the Philippines, and I think I was in Australia. And I called Keith and I said, babe, we need a daily ritual. This is a consistency. I mean, I'm literally in the 7th country, and every single couple, without exception, has had a daily ritual.
So and really what that's saying is that you are prioritizing
Yes, you
your
are.
spouse. That's what it means, is
You
that
are.
this hour or
Yes.
this 15 minutes, whatever,
Yeah.
this is dedicated to you.
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
if you think about it, in any given day, we have, what, 1,440 minutes? If
Who just
can't-
knows that? Who just knows we have 1,440 minutes?
Well, I only know this because I was speaking at a conference, and this woman had a question in the audience, and she was talking about how busy she is and how she's this businesswoman
Yeah.
and her husband just doesn't understand. And I said, someone pull out a calculator and tell me how many minutes are in a day. 1,440 minutes. So you're telling me that you cannot figure out 30 minutes in that time frame to prioritize your marriage. We got bigger issues in your business.
Okay.
And so that's how we looked at
Yeah.
it. And you know, my husband and I live very busy lives, but we prioritize every morning. We call it Weaver Coffee Hour. And without exception, we're having that coffee together. And if we are somewhere else, we're on the phone. And we're having that time together. He's having his coffee, I'm having my coffee.
All right.
And so having that daily ritual, that's that communication. You never miss it. And that builds trust. So we're going back to the trust issue. The
All right,
other
y'all.
thing,
We're going to do it. Everybody
daily
with me?
rituals.
We're going to do our daily rituals,
Daily
y'all?
rituals.
Okay. All right.
The second thing that was very surprising to me is when I would sit down with these couples and I would interview them for hours. Do you want to know how many times sex came up?
How many times did sex come up, Fawn? One time with all those couples?
Let me tell you why.
Were the men present in the conversation?
Every single time. Every single time. Let me tell you why. It's because when you are taking care of your marriage outside of the bedroom, it takes care of itself inside of the bedroom.
Ooh. That's good.
It is those that have great sex lives, and people always say, well, you should have that breakup to makeup, and that mad sex is the best sex. I was like, no, happy sex is pretty doggone good.
Yeah.
It's one of those things when you're taking care of, we're going back to building up your spouse and building up each other and respecting each other. So this is what happens. So many get into the bedroom and all of a sudden they get so serious. It's like, it's serious and it's work. And that same laughter that you have in the kitchen, in the living room, that same friendship should come into the bedroom because we all go through life's changes. Our bodies are changing, our hormones are changing. So the thing that made me go wild yesterday, I gotta tell you, that spot man moved by today. And that's just the fact of life. But being able to laugh about those things and having that friendship to say, hey babe, you did it for me last week, just now, didn't work.
Yeah.
Let's do that again. And being able to laugh about that and joke about that, but then being able to explore each other, to explore each other's bodies, but that is a part of exploring each other's minds outside of the bedroom.
Do you know what? This is reminding me of your mama. This reminds me of your mom. I don't know if you guys know this, but her mother is an incredible woman named Bunny Wilson. And Bunny Wilson traveled for years, speaking, teaching, writing books. Listen, if you are a single woman, you need to read Knight in Shining Armor, which her mother wrote 3 decades ago. I don't know.
And it still sells.
Oh my goodness, it's
still sells.
incredible. I read it in my teen years, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. But that's just one of many books that your mom wrote. Liberated Through Submission is a mainstay.
Yes.
But she would also write about God is in the bedroom is the name of a book.
Yep.
God is in the kitchen too.
Yes.
That's the name of a book.
God is in the kitchen in my house by himself.
So just talking about how God is found in all of
He's
these
found
practical
everywhere.
aspects of our life and in our marriage. And that's basically what you're saying.
Absolutely.
That when there's health over here in these aspects of your relationship, then the sex aspect takes care of itself.
It takes care of itself, but it isn't to say that means it's going to be so perfect all the time. You're going to have to make those adjustments.
Which is where the communication comes in and being open and having that friendship in the bedroom.
Absolutely, having the friendship.
Well, and I think this is so important because I hope that nobody's missing, because I'm starting to just grasp the cyclical nature of what you're describing here. That when there's health on this side, that it filters into this side.
Yes.
One will take care of the other.
Yes.
Which means that to concentrate on respect, on trust, to really build your spouse up. When you're doing these things, then the other, because on one side or the other, for the male or the female, one thing for you might not carry as much weight as it does for your spouse.
Absolutely.
But if you're concentrating at least on that thing that is a priority to you, that you know is a priority to your spouse, then it's going to automatically feed into the other one, and there will be health all the way around. That's what you're describing.
It is, and I'll tell you something that I did, and I always get women who go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this," but it worked for me. So this was, I will tell you what I did. Somewhere around Australia, we're Skyping, and I said, "Honey, I want to be the best wife that I can be." And I asked him to do something that I actually recommend that people do it, although I've gotten a lot of criticism for this. I asked him on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the potential wife that I could be, my best self as your wife, where am I on that scale? Now, you know he wanted to plead the fifth, right? Now, I am traveling the world interviewing happily married women. I thought I was a really, really, really awesome wife. And so I just knew I was getting a really high 8, low 9, and 7.
You know, 7's not bad.
7 is not bad, but for the fact that I was a hotel GM in Hilton. And for anyone that goes to a Hilton, I'm going to give you a secret. 7 equals 0. So does 8.
Really?
8 equals 0. If you put an 8 on a survey score for Hilton, that hotel just got a 0. And so in my head, he said 7. I said, if 8 equals 0, my goodness. I didn't even get an 8. And so what I asked him, my follow-up question to that was, give me a list of 6 things that I could work on to become that 10. Now, mind you, he's not comparing me to other people. He's comparing me to me. Because his first response was, well, if I compare you to this person, you're 100. I didn't ask you to compare me to that.
And that could also go the opposite way, where comparing you to somebody else that they think that their standard, the way they respect their husband is up here, that could cause them to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I said, just comparing to the wife that I could be at my best self. What is that? And we should all want to know that from our spouse. There's nothing to me. There's nothing negative about that question.
What if you're married to somebody mean, though, and they're just going to give you a bad rating no matter how hard you, because there are a lot of women that are feeling a little bit discouraged right now because they may not be married to somebody who's supportive and kind and encouraging, and they might just be married to somebody who is demeaning and wants to be cruel.
This isn't the book for you.
This isn't the book for you. Counseling, that's what you're saying.
It's counseling.
Go get the oil changed.
Yes. So this is a book. You've got a good marriage. You chose a good mate. Because keep in mind, if we're here in the United States, we did choose our mate. And we had a choice. And so that book is for those who already have a good marriage, at the very least an okay marriage, and they just want to go from good to great.
Okay.
So if you are below okay, not the book for you.
Not the book for you. All right. Well, at least you know exactly who your audience is.
I know exactly who it is.
That's good. When we come back, we're going to take some questions from some women in the audience that want to just be prepared, some single women that have questions. They want to be prepared, but also from some married women as well that would like even more great, wise counsel from our friend Fawn Weaver. So we will be right back in just a few minutes. If you're feeling discouraged and defeated, if you're a bit overwhelmed or maybe even feeling undone, if you're wondering whether or not your future has any hope of victory, then listen, this Bible study is for you. Strongholds are torn down by the Word of God. Fortresses are dismantled by the Word of God. When you place faith in Jesus Christ, the righteousness of Christ is credited to your spiritual bank account. That you are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. I invite you to join me for a lesson in putting on the full armor of God. Our lives are going to be changed, yours and mine, because we're going to learn that we've got the victory in Jesus' name. All righty, we've got some questions here from our audience that we're going to be asking our guest, Fawn Weaver. Thank you so much for being up for this.
Absolutely.
Some single women that have a couple questions for us. How many of you are single in our group today? How many of you are single? All right, so we have quite a handful of single women that are gathering with us today. Here's a question from Lindsay. She wants to know, what is the one thing, if you could just boil it down to one, what's the one thing you wish you were told before you got married?
Don't listen to advice of those who are not happily married.
So that's what you wish you were told. don't listen to advice of people who are not happily married.
Yeah. Why would you listen to the advice? Would you listen to someone that's going through bankruptcy to help you with your finances? And so it's unfortunately, we go back to that, what we were talking about earlier. It's always those that are negative, that are so loud, they're so vocal. They're the ones who want to give you advice. And they set you up for failure because you start looking for stuff that would not otherwise be there. And if you look for something, you will create it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So do you think then a single woman should pursue a relationship with a happy wife? For the purpose of asking her, gleaning from her, listening to what she has to say.
Absolutely. Be in the presence of those who are happily married, especially happy wives, and just hang out with them. Don't ask them a bunch of questions. Just go and have coffee.
Yeah.
Because those who are, it's so interesting, those who are happily married, the moment you sit with them and you give them the ability to talk about it, it's like turning on a water spigot. You cannot shut it off because no one ever cares. Everyone wants to know about the drama.
Yeah.
And so when you give them the opportunity to just say,
they're glad.
They're glad.
Yeah.
They're grateful. Life
Okay.
is good.
This woman says, what advice would you give to a single woman in their mid-30s who has a desire to be married, but honestly there are no men around who will pursue you? And she has underlined pursue. Not that they're not there, they're just not pursuing.
Yeah. Well, here's the good news. If you're not looking for men, you're looking for a man. And if you are looking for the one, that the one is already chosen for you. So all you have to do is focus on creating the life of your dreams while you're single and allow for that to come to you.
Well, there you go. In what ways can a new wife start out on the right track right away with her marriage and build happy elements into her marriage? Thank you for this question, Bessie. Where's Bessie? Are you back there somewhere? There she is back there. That's what she wants to know.
Yeah.
In what ways can you start off right off the bat?
Yeah, there's a real fiery wife that I interviewed in Cape Town, and she was just, she was, I want to say 68, and she gave me a run for my money hiking. Hiking.
Okay. Yeah.
She had so much energy. And one of the things that she said is that if a woman begins talking negatively about her husband around her, she will not go out with that woman again. And so what happens with those who are newly married, if you put together, say, 7 women around a table, you're going to have 6 of them that are complaining about their spouses or their marriage or something that they did wrong, because that kind of makes you feel in.
Yeah.
But then you're going to have that one person who is silent. It's usually the happy wife. And it's because that happy wife doesn't want to seem as though they're being braggadocious or seem as though they're haughty or they're higher than, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. The problem with that is we're going back to the comment you made earlier, then the only people that are ever talking are those 6. And so if you are that one, remove yourself from that environment. It's okay to keep it at a distance, but if you really truly want to create a marriage that is built to last a lifetime and to be happily married, then you want to surround yourself. Birds of a feather flock together. Yeah.
What is the most important thing for single women to look for in a man if this is going to be a happy marriage? What is the trait that I'm kind of got to keep my eye out for in that guy that I'm dating?
Hey, so do we go back to that first thing, right?
Okay.
How much does he respect you?
And what does that look like? What does respect look like to a woman?
Respect looks different to every single person. And so Jerry's respect for you is going to look different from my husband, from Keith's respect for me. So the question for a person that is single is how much do you respect yourself? And is that person respecting you in the manner in which you respect yourself, if you truly respect yourself? So there's no real barometer for that. What does respect look like? The question is, what does it look like for you? But you should know whether or not you're being respected. I think we all get that sense. We all know whether or not we're being respected. And if a man is not truly respecting you, and it's, I was going to make a joke about the cow and the milk, but that's a whole other story. Go ahead.
Okay, tell us about a hurdle, though, you've gone through with this issue of respecting your own marriage. Yeah. Is there something you've had to kind of,
Yeah.
Help us out.
Because I'm such a strong
You
person.
are.
I left home when I was 15. So that's a whole other story, and it's actually in the book. But I left home really early, before my 16th birthday, and I went through a really tough period of time. And it's so interesting because here I am interviewing all of these happily married women. I'm happily married. I love my life. And then you get to the center of the book and it's like, and then I dropped out of school. I left when I was 15. I tried to commit suicide twice. And everyone just kind of goes, what just happened here?
Yeah.
Everything that's in my life right now is a choice. It's not because it began that way. It's not because it's always been that way. And so there were certain parts of me, still are, that I have to battle because there are certain habits that we create. So when I go into a boardroom and I'm running a board meeting, I have to make sure that when I get home, I don't try to run my house like that's a board meeting.
You know what? I think that's something that women need to hear, that it's okay to be strong, but there's a place for that strength and the way it is demonstrated and where and when it's demonstrated.
Place for a time and a place for everything. In the home is not that place.
So did you struggle with that? Did you bring home your boardroom stuff?
Absolutely.
How'd that go over with Keith?
He'd look at me and go, and so we are where? and I would immediately know, because the thing is that I respect him so much. He really, truly is the most amazing person I have ever met in my life.
Where is Keith? We need to see Keith.
I know, right? He didn't fly in.
Keith.
We need, someone put up a picture.
Yeah,
He's so
we're
cute.
gonna find one.
He's so cute. Actually, on Happy Wives Club, I have our 10-year vow renewal, and there's a picture of him, and he's just a cutie pie.
Oh, Lord.
He really is. He's so cute. But he is just, I have such an amount of respect for him. And so anytime I would even feel myself lacking that, I immediately put it in check and have to remind myself, okay, I may run the show in the boardroom, but when I come home, we're equals. That's not gonna fly. And it should not. We are teammates. And that needs to come through in everything I do and everything I say. But does that come natural to me? Oh my gosh, no. No.
So do you have to sometimes hear yourself and and then sort of backtrack?
Back it out.
Okay.
Back it out, yeah.
I have heard often that the way to make sure that your marriage is solid and strong is to really make it your business to study your spouse. Like go to the college of your spouse. In other words, become a student about what they like, don't like, what makes them feel respected and loved and what does not.
Yeah.
Do you think that's
Absolutely. You should have a PhD in your husband. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And husbands should have a PhD in their wives. Absolutely, because you should know their language. And by the way, it's a foreign language. So that 4-year prerequisite in high school of the foreign language, it's a foreign language. We come from two very different backgrounds. My husband and I especially come from two completely different worlds. And so when you're talking, the way you're communicating, you have to understand their language. And you're not going to just get that immediately unless you marry someone who's just like you. But most people don't.
No. Jerry and I are so different, it's comical. It's almost comical, where you want to look at God and say, now what? And so that really is the way it is. Okay, so what does a woman do? You know, she's been married for a few decades, hadn't been happy. She's just reading this book. She's just hearing this idea that you can actually be happy in marriage. And honestly, just kind of settled into the rut of unhappiness because it's the way it is. It's the way things have always been. What is even the first step toward walking toward happiness in her marriage and in her life?
So there's an interesting thing. So the Happy Wives Club, there's a Facebook page, and there is close to 1 million women just on the Facebook page that engage on any given day. There's thousands of them talking to each other. I'll post a question and say, what's your number one piece of advice for newlyweds, and all that, and they'll just give all of their different advice, and it's amazing to see. But one of the things I do is every day is I post an encouraging graphic, and I do this twice a day. And I had someone who sent me a letter, an email, and we don't send snail mail anymore, but she sent me an email, and she was explaining to me her situation. She had been married for close to 30 years. They were losing their home. Her husband hadn't worked in a year. He had been laid off, hadn't been able to get another job, and they had just been nonstop arguing. So they went to therapy, and the therapist told her to write down every single negative thing that comes to her mind about her husband. Just write it down. Don't give it to him. Just write it down so that she could get it out. And she said, the same day that I began the list, I came across your page. And I realized that the same amount of time it would take for me to write down everything that was terrible about him, I could think about the last 30 years and write down everything he's done right. And so I took the list the therapist told me, I threw it in the trash, and I began my list of everything that's great about it. And it was so awesome because she said, we're still in the process of losing our house. He still hasn't found a job, but I tell you what we did find is we found each other again, and that's all that matters.
It's true. And I think whatever we focus on grows.
Yes.
Whatever you put your attention
Yes.
to is going to get bigger and bigger in your mind and your heart, and it's going to block out the view of whatever else you've left behind. So you get to choose what's going to grow.
Yeah.
What's going to grow.
Absolutely.
So focus on the good.
Focus on the good, and then remember, you had a choice. And you chose your spouse. So what was the reason that you, out of all of the people in the world that you could have chosen from, why did you choose them? So if you start there and put a pin in it, and then kind of work your way backwards out of the situation, because every situation is temporary. The only permanent thing in your temporary world is your marriage, because that's the one thing that is until the end of time.
You know what? It takes us back to this very important principle where, honestly, no matter what interview I'm doing or what we're talking about, a lot of times they all end up at this important issue of gratitude.
Yes.
Being grateful
Yes.
for what is good in the situation and finding it, meaning mine for it, dig for it, discover it, look for it. Because yes, sometimes the negative is going to be louder, it's going to be easier to spot, it's going to strike a chord with you that sits with you at night and during the day. So you've got to be purposeful, and I have to be purposeful about spotting the good in our spouse and then highlighting it. And not only highlighting it to ourselves, but highlighting it to them. Make sure that they know what you appreciate about them, because most of the time, your spouse and mine, they're going to rise to whatever standard they hear us call out over their lives. And so speak well of your spouse. It's going to make sure that you are a happy wife. I love the fact that you've spent so much time with us and that you have written this book, because this book really can begin to transform your destiny, your life, your marriage, your mind, your heart, put a smile on your face. So if you do not have a copy of this book, you're going to want to grab one as soon as you possibly can. It's going to really make a difference in your existence. Would you guys please help me to thank our friend Fawn for being here?
Thank you.
You guys, so glad.